consolidate, especially if you're out doing landscapes, being able to consolidate everything into something manageable, it really is, you know, this is 50 years of painting outside, and this is what I've got it down to. Like I said, the only downside to this is it's pretty damn heavy. You know, I am thinking about, as I'm getting older, they make a two-wheel cart that you can put this in. So anyway, this panel carrier, this is a company in Arizona called Raymar, and he died. Ray died. His wife and his daughter still run the business, but they make great panels, and they also make these panel carriers. They're not cheap. I think this was about $40. But this thing is old, and I just beat the crap out of it, and it's like a plastic cardboard. But if you look inside, it's got slots for panels. They have to be the same dimension. So this is a 12 by 16. So I have a 12 by 16 panel, which is what I'm going to block in today. And then I have 9 by 12. This is the painting we're going to do. But if you can do 2 panels in a slot, back to back, wet. And so it'll actually hold 6 panels.
Wow.
Anyway, they make a great, like I say, they're not cheap. They make a 30 by 40 inch panel. And I've painted on, and they've lasted forever. They're better than, these are fairly inexpensive, the Pintura that I talked about. I love these panels over the Fredericks and stuff because they never warp. You know, and it's a hardboard, they're made in Italy. Raymar makes a better panel on linen and stuff, but their panels they're kind of pricey. These panels, I think these 9 by 12s cost me about $3 or $4 a piece.
Oh, really?
How much do the 9 by 12s cost you?
Yeah, you buy them packs of 2.
And
The biggest downside to Pintura is the biggest panel they make is an 18 by 24.
okay,
But the Raymar panels, I've done 30 by 40 from them. Actually, I got a painting in the gallery in the show. It's a big 30 by 40, and it's on a Raymar panel that I did. The panel is probably 20 years old. I've done 3 or 4 paintings on it. I paint over stuff. Okay, so this is my setup. Everything's consolidated right here. In the easel, I've even got my paint. It's all ready to go. This block holds the paint palette down so the paint doesn't get smeared. The only downside is, like I've told Jerry, is if you stay in the easel too long and you got oil paint on there, it tends to slide down the panel. So you want to make sure if you're storing it with paint on it to lay it flat. But other than that, you can keep your wet palette in here and it doesn't get boogered up because the way the design is. I also, another thing that would lighten up, and I'm too cheap to do it, I've got my studio size tubes in here instead of the small easel size tubes. They would be a lot lighter. These are, you know, you put 8 of those in there and you add quite a bit of weight. But everything is in here that I need. I've got my brushes down here. I've got paper towels. This easel, actually when we use airbrush t-shirts at car shows, I use this as my easel for airbrushing t-shirts. But I've had this easel, I ordered it in 1975 is when I got it. So 49 years old. I'm not going to put the legs out to do it today. I'm just going to set it up on the table. And so the beauty of this is, you pull this out. This is how I set up.
So it's called a French easel, right?
Yeah, it's called Julian. The great story about this is there was an artist or a GI at the end of World War II that took his discharge in Paris to study art. His name was Roger Julian, American. He invented this easel. They called it a French easel because he was in Paris when he invented it, but they also called it a Julian easel after him. The problem with these easels, you guys, is most of them are junk. The ones I've seen I use this, here's how this works. The ones I've seen at plein air events, a lot of them they're wobbly, they're crap. If you can find a Grumbacher 286, that's an original easel. Jerry sells one, they call it a original French easel. Right on the leg it says made in China. So I need to put weight in the back of this. I don't have my legs on. Uh-oh. Power going out?
Yeah.
Well, we'll just have to deal with it, I guess.
Diane, are you gonna post that?
I thought you hit that maybe on the back.
No, there's nothing back there. That's what I thought first too.
But they all went out.
Yeah, I wanna.
So I've got an old bread pan that was her grandma's,
Oh, that's.
and it holds my turp and my medium. And I put my pallet right here, and my canvas goes on there. This is the image I'm gonna do
Uh-oh, you
today.
just got a little on your sleeve.
What, huh?
He just got a little on his sleeve.
Oh, I did, right there?
Yeah.
I grabbed
And you
my arms
leaned
in.
over.
Okay, that's
Do you
old
want me to
jacket.
fix it?
This picture is a shot I took a few years ago on 105 between Larkspur and Palmer Lake. And you know how I'm always talking to you guys about what's your motivation? Why are you painting this? You know, you don't just paint anything. Have a reason you're painting something. It really makes a difference. You really want to communicate something. So this is an old ranch that's right off of 105. I'll pass it around so you guys can see it. And buildings like this for me, it's like a portrait. There's a persona to this old barn, and there's a you know, when I saw the thing and I thought, oh man, that's cool. I'm taking pictures of it. That's what I want to capture. You know, when you do a portrait, if you get the eye wrong or the nose wrong, you don't get the portrait. You don't get the person. And so it's the same thing with this building. I got to capture that look of this building if I want this painting to succeed. But this is my whole impetus for doing this painting, is that the history of that building that I feel. And so that's the thought. And it doesn't have to be, thank you dear, it doesn't have to be a profound thought, it just has to be a conscious thought. Why am I painting this? You know, it's easy, I fall into it, I've done it many, many times. I just, you know, I want to paint. So you just grab something to paint. And then you wonder why it didn't succeed very well, because you didn't really have a thought behind it. You know, this painting I did probably 15 years ago, it's called Descending into Leadville. And that was coming over Mosquito Pass in a Jeep that I had. And we came down the mountain into Leadville. And the whole thing that I loved about that was, here sat this village in the middle, you know, right here in the high majesty of the mountains. And I really wanted to kind of, and we'd just been over Mosquito Pass, which is kind of hairy. I don't know if anybody's ever been over Mosquito.
Oh, yeah, mosquito
Have you been
bite.
over Mosquito? We went in July, and the mosquitoes on the east side, on the Alma side, were horrible. That's why they call it. And there was an old gold mine up on the east side there, quite a ways up. And when we got on the other side, my friend said, I had binoculars, and he said, what's that over on the hill? And it was a car that had rolled down and it was like a little Suzuki Samurai, and it was just messed up. I wonder why the lights are. So anyway, my impetus for this painting is to capture kind of the attitude of this old building, you know, the history of it. And so I've got a reason to paint it now, and why a block-in is so important, you guys, on a painting is, a block-in is your foundation. That's the thing that establishes the painting. It's what you're gonna build your painting on. And you know, and I keep harping on things. One, because I'm senile and I just repeat myself. Two, because some of these things are important. You know, I'm gonna keep repeating these things. Have a reason to do a painting. Block-ins are important. Moving around on your painting. I got some vine charcoal in somewhere. All of these things are important. The block-in, you guys, the block-in is, it establishes the painting. You know, if you get and there's been times when I've got a great block-in and screwed it up. And that really upsets me. But if you get a bad block-in, the painting just usually goes worse. It just doesn't get better. And so the block-in, it establishes the whole attitude of what you're going to do. Trying to work quick here because I know you want to paint. And I don't want to waste all your time with this stuff. So this is the panel I'm trying out. I got it for Jerry's. It's a new, I've not done but one painting on these. And the reason I got it is because it's linen. Now linen is different than canvas. The paint lays up better on linen. I don't know why.
And where'd you get that?
Jerry's.
Okay.
It's not cheap. It's kind of a car. It's a cheap panel. It's not near as good as the Ventura as far as the quality of the support, the panel. In history, linen lasts 500 years. Canvas only lasts about 100. And I've got a couple old paintings I bought when we were in France 20 years ago that are on linen, and it's right at 80 years old, and it's starting to go. And so the support, the canvas, the linen itself, the paint stays good, but the canvas, it just ages and goes away. But linen's supposed to last 3, 4, 5 times longer than canvas. But it also paints better. But linen costs a lot more. My big paintings that I do in the galleries and stuff, they're all on Belgian linen. And I stretch my own canvases. And the Belgian linen's not cheap, but man, it makes a difference.
Would you hold up so you can take a picture?
Sure,
Is that
sure.
okay? Okay, thank
This is at the Jerry's, Hank.
you. Okay, now is that, you,
I don't do anything else with it. I used to prime my own canvases, which is a pain.
now is that self-prime?
I'm sorry? I forgot my hearing aids today.
Okay.
Is it
Is
self-primed?
that self-primed? or-
Yeah, it's
you don't
all
use
primed and
less-
ready to go. All primed.
Okay, if you hold it up and take a picture. Come on a little bit further.
Yeah. Linen, the best linen is a double primed oil based, lead based. You can still get, did you know you can still get flake lead primer in art supplies? Like an idiot, right after I got out of grad school, I was priming panels. And white lead is really hard to deal with. It doesn't brush very easy. It's thick. It's got the viscosity of lard. I mean, it's that thick. Hard coal lard. And I got frustrated and started smearing with my hands. I went numb up to my elbows. And I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? And
I
so I
just
put
finished
messages
my
like that.
master's and now I'm paralyzed.
I thought, what an idiot. So, when I use the French easel, I like to use these little tags they got out front because it doesn't obscure as much of the canvas as if I put it back in this part where it covers up a lot of the canvas. And so, a block-in, my intention on a block-in, you guys, is to get the canvas covered. Now, why that's important is this is one surface. This is one image I'm making. I'm not making pieces of an image. I'm making a whole, a total. And if you work a little area and you finish it, and you work a little area and you finish it, it's piecemeal. You're doing little pieces of the painting. You want to do the whole painting at once. You want to pull that painting out together. And so a block-in is not a finished painting. A block-in is a block-in. It establishes the, I'm going to see if I...
And where do you balance if you have a photograph?
I'm sorry?
Where do you balance your photograph or whatever you're using as a
I
subject?
I took a picture with a digital camera and printed it out with a printer.
I always have trouble deciding where to put it.
Oh, where to look at
As
it?
yeah, to look
I,
at it.
over, let me slide this over. I do this.
Okay, on the table.
You know, at home I've got I bought it, my Hobby Lobby. I bought it was a pine made, a cat tabaret for microwave. And so I've got,
This is probably where they kind of.
at home I use a
That's
laptop,
probably where the
a projector
panel is
laptop
behind the locked door.
instead of in this kind of an image.
Yeah.
And it's just sitting so it's at eye level, and I just have it over like this by the easel.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm going to look at now, another thing you guys got to notice, the dimensions of this canvas is not quite the same dimensions as the photographic image. I think it's probably just a shade longer. You know, if you get an image that's square and you're painting on a rectangular canvas, there's going to be some kind of discrepancy there. So be aware, you know, of the shape, basic shape you're working from. So what I'm going to do is with my vine charcoal, I'm just going to look at positive and negative. This line is opposed to the edge of the image, and I'm just going to start to place loosely at my drawing. And because this is a little shorter, I'm gonna have to change the composition a little bit. But I'm really just establishing kind of where I wanna place stuff. And so, and the reason buying charcoal, you know, if I don't like it, I do this. But I love the character of that old building, that old barn. We went up to Renaissance Festival, been quite a few years ago, and I tried to find it again, and I couldn't find it. I don't know if they tore it down or if it, I don't know what happened to it, but I couldn't find this old building. I couldn't find the old building again. Boy, it's really changed. Anybody ever been up on 105? It's really changing up there. There's a lot of football players for the Broncos have their estates there along 105. Big gated. Have you seen the gated driveway?
Oh, yeah. The old horse ranches.
Okay, so, and generally in a landscape, I know you guys are all familiar with this. The general nature of a landscape is you work from the background to the foreground. And that's usually correct. That's usually the truth. You want to work back to forward because the sky's behind everything else, and then this mountain's on top of the sky. The trees are on top of the mountain. So generally, that's the way to work. But it's not always the rule. There are going to be times when you work different layers. You may work from the front to the back. But generally, in a landscape, you work background to foreground. And so when I do a block in, I block in that way. I block in background to foreground. So that means I'm going to start with the sky and work towards the front.
Do you always use charcoal to start?
You know, I always use my charcoal just to get a basic. And you know, you notice I didn't spend a lot of time on this. I just working quick. Jerry and I are going to do some plein air. If anybody else wants to do some plein air this spring for free, just go out with me. You're welcome to do that. I don't want to charge for every damn thing we do, but if you guys want to do some plein air together, you're welcome to do that. So, the thing is, when you're doing actual plein air, is time. The sun doesn't stand still for you. The sun's in constant movement, and so you've got maybe an hour and a half of light that's similar before the shadows and everything starts to change. So that's another reason to work quickly, to get your block in done fast. I use goop to saturate my brushes to keep them soft. And so before I start painting, I want to kind of get the goop off of them with the turpentine. Now, I'm going to move this in just a little bit. I'm worried about the weight of this there. I've got my palette laid out like I do at home. So I know this is my titanium white, this is my zinc white.
What's that on the left?
This is zinc white and titanium white.
That is that the Galkid? Is that what that?
I'm sorry?
Is that Galkid?
Yeah, that's my alkyd. I use it from the block in. The great thing about alkyd is you don't have to worry about fat overlaying. It's a synthetic, so it works really well. So if you notice in the photograph, the sky almost always, because you're looking through more atmosphere, is lighter at the horizon than it is the higher up you go. And so I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to start to block in. And on a block in, you guys, you don't want to use a whole lot of paint. You don't want your paint, real thick. You can build to that, but you really want to do a thinner, more gestural, loose stroke, and keep it moving. You want to get this canvas, get it covered. That doesn't mean arbitrary. That doesn't mean, well, the color's not right, that's okay. The drawing's not right, that isn't okay. You want to be as correct and accurate as you can. You just want to make sure you're moving and you're covering the canvas. Last week, Diana said, "Yeah, damn it, you should have told me not to film it." I covered over a painting a couple of weeks ago. It was a 30 by 36. And it's about the third painting on that canvas. and I didn't care for it. And so I blocked in a new painting. I did the block in half an hour on a 30 by 36. I had that whole canvas covered, what, half an hour, 45 minutes? And so, and it's a good, the painting came out pretty good. It was conceptual. I didn't have it was a canyon painting I just painted out of my head. Jerry saw it. Okay, so that's what I want to do for the sky. What the primary concern for me on the sky is not to get the clouds at this point, but to get the general variation of color, to get that color, you know, in a general way. So now I'm going to go back to the mountain here in the background. I like this brush. This is a Filbert, an 8. I only have 3 brushes I usually do on the canvas this size. And that's a Filbert 8, and you know me and my angular sash. So I'm going to grab my angular sash, clean the goop off of it. And so now, this is where I squint down. The light, I can't believe we lost our light. I'm going to squint down and look at this, and I'm not looking, you guys, at all of the nuances at this point. I'm not looking at the transitions between that dark purpley color and the lighter pinkish color. I'm not worried about those on the block end. What I want to get is the general timbre of this mountain and the shape, and I'm going to squint down and try and get that combination of color. Okay, so I see that as, let's see, I'm going to use a little titanium white. And I love to add mix. I love to grab colors that I've already mixed and kind of use them a little bit. And so...
So what do you have here?
That's Alizarin Permanent.
Okay.
It's the same palette that we've talked about. And I'm loving this. The Payne's Gray was the last thing I've added to my palette in the last few years. And I'm loving it for the ability that it gives me to tint color. It really is really nice. And it amazes me that it doesn't muddy as bad as I thought it would. At the Art Institute, it was a no-no to use black on your palette. Now, Michelle, you can relate to this. As I was telling you, make your strokes descriptive. Don't, you know, I see this mountain as a plane that does this, so I'm going to make my strokes descriptive and describe that mountain in the plane that I see it as and brush. This is a subliminal thing. People really feel that and read that. The way you make a brushstroke, you can walk up even to an abstract painting, and if you study it, you can see how the artist made the brushstroke. And if the brushstroke isn't descriptive, then it doesn't really work as well as it could if it's not only describing the color and the form, but also the plane, the movement. It really makes a difference. So you want your brushstrokes to be descriptive. And so back on this side, it's a lighter, pinker kind of a color, and I'm going to make that transition. Again, I got to emphasize, just because I'm working quick and I'm doing this kind of in a haphazard manner, I'm trying to be as accurate as I can with form and color. Okay? And keep your brush clean, keep your palette clean. If your palette starts to get, that's why these plexiglass palettes are great. If your palette starts to get too much paint on dirt, wipe the damn thing off and keep it fresh. If you're trying to paint all this mess of paint all over, you're just going to get mud. You're going to start getting muddy color. And you want your colors to stay fresh. Okay, so I've got this reddish area here. Wow, the lights kind of sucks now, guys. See if I tried to do, Hank was there when I tried to do a demo at the Cultural Center this winter, and the light was horrible in there. You know, when I did that blocking at the Cultural Center. Yeah, that's too. That's still too. A little warmer. Okay, somewhere in there is strong. And edges, you know, make some soft and hard edges when you paint. Look at my time, I don't want, almost too long. I don't want to spend the whole day with this, you guys.
This is good, though.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so you have any questions? Holler them out. I'm trying to stay out of the way so you guys can see me. Or see the painting, I mean. And your titanium white is great for brilliance, intense highlights, getting that sense of light. Your zinc white is great to change the value of a color, to make it lighter. But the titanium white's what gives you your intensity. And if you use both for like snow, you can get a luminosity. Lay down a base with titanium white and then maybe go over it with zinc white with maybe a little blue or lavender or whatever. And it gets that, how snow has that kind of translucence to it. You can actually capture that by using the two whites.
Which first? Which one first?
The titanium is a good base. It's opaque and it's really strong. The zinc white is translucent, and so, it works that way. Now, when I get down to the building here, I'm going to want to take a little more time and study it a little harder. Again, I'm not going to worry about all the texture of the boards and stuff at this point. What I want to do is get the general color and shape of the building. And so it is kind of a barn red. Mixing, I don't know if you guys can see, I'm mixing little pieces. I'm not pulling big blobs of paint to mix. I'm pulling in little strokes, and I have more control over it that way. If we get to mixing big pieces of color and grab a big chunk of color, you wind up with a puddle of color like this when you really don't need to, especially when I'm doing a painting this size. I just need to get an amount of color so I can paint the object I'm trying to paint.
So you don't use the palette knife to mix?
I don't use a palette knife at all. I cannot use a palette knife. They overpower me. They get real gimmicky and real techniquey. I'm not good with a palette knife. I've seen people who are. Richard Smith would take a palette knife and he'd go in this building and he would grab a piece of paint and cut an edge on that was just dynamic. You guys, if you want to spend the money, Richard Smith has DVDs of him painting. They're worth every penny. They're $40, $50 a DVD. He's online. They're hypnotic. They are, I get goosebumps. I had a bunch, I gave them to my daughter because she expressed an interest in art and painting. But my God, they're great. They're just, But you know how I feel about Richard Smith. You guys have heard it all. So again, I'm laying, Michelle, the brush strokes vertically, which describes the plane of this wall, and also it kind of gives the texture of the boards. So even in the block-in, I'm trying to be sensitive to everything that I'm painting. And when I get done with the block-in, I want to have, like I said earlier, I want to have the surface covered. I want to have, I know there's a shape here or something. And why that's important is because I'm pulling this as a whole. This image is a whole. It's not pieces, it's a whole image. And the block-in, you guys, I've emphasized, it is. And so for the roof, it looks a little bluish to me. And I think it's probably because it's reflecting a little bit of the sky. So I'm going to kind of give it a little bit of a tint. And then we've got, okay, so this building, I have my drawings off. This building and roof line is actually down here. And so, great thing about Vine Charcoal, move it down. And then Two things they say that really help with your initial blocking on a painting is to establish your darkest dark and your lightest light. And you do that by squinting. So when you squint and look at the image, when I squint and look at this image, by far the lightest thing in the painting is this roof. Okay? So and everything is relationships. Everything relates to everything else. The darkest thing I see in there are the shaded areas, the windows in the barn, this shaded area here. I've got some that are fairly dark here. I think that's the photograph. In the painting, I won't make these as dark because I know the photograph has dropped out some of that mid-range. And so this is where, as an artist, I have to make some decisions. You know, as an artist, you're always editing. There's no way I can physically be this photograph, paint every leaf on this tree, paint every blade of grass. That's just, number one, it's redundant. But it's also really hard to do. And so what I want to do is I want to edit and paint more generalities. You know, squinting helps me to do that. And so when I squint down and look, I'm going to lay in my darks. I've got my lightest light, which doesn't look that light right now because I've got all this white working against it. That's another reason to get this surface covered, because I may be trying to modulate this and figure out how light it should be when I've got all this intense white down here that is affecting how I see this white. So your darkest dark, and that's another general rule, guys. I'm not making any of this stuff up. This is stuff that I've been taught. Your darkest dark and your lightest light are just like painting background to foreground. That's another thing that you want to have, be committed to and think about when you're doing your block in. What is the darkest dark? What is the lightest light? And so, you know, I might lay in this. It might be a little too high. And something here. And then I've got this dark here. And all of a sudden, these darks have an impact on this light. When I get the rest of this coverage, you'll see. And then we're about done. Then we can start painting. Then I'll have my block in. So, and here. Okay. If you got any questions, guys, holler. Is this making sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If that don't make sense, it's the senility kicking in. Edges, 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 edges. There are no clean hard edges where the grass meets this barn, so I'm not going to make any clean hard edges. And I can't see what's going on in the background here because I've got trees that I'm going to lay in. When I lay in the trees, then my blocking will be done. I wish we had better light, you guys. Can't believe. Did they cut the power, you think?
I was trying to see if anybody else was out around us.
Gail said the people that are below us have been bitching about the noise we make. I'm loud, you know. Deep people.
Who's below us?
I'm sorry?
Who's below?
I don't know. I know
think
Gail,
it's
I
the
didn't know
hair.
there were people
The hair,
below
I
us.
think so.
I didn't know there was somebody below us, but there's a business below us.
Ah,
And so maybe they
Well,
cut
he
off.
shared, the business below us is sharing our fuses.
Do what now?
Maybe. I figured that maybe a fuse blew.
Maybe.
And that door is locked, so that's where the fuse box may be. No, this is right here.
I'll call Gail after
Yeah,
you
you
get
might
done.
call her.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've about got my canvas covered. And again, I'm just thinking about the texture of this field. And I'm gonna, during the block in, arbitrary, but it isn't arbitrary. You know, I wanna capture that quality. And if you notice in the painting, my building's up higher. That's because of this dimension thing I was talking about. You know, this is more horizontal, longer image than my canvas. And because the trees are on top of everything else, that's the last thing I'm painting. You see that? I mean, so everything else is really kind of behind the trees. So what I'm gonna do to do my trees is I'm first gonna try and get the shapes of the trunks, you know, establish that. And let's see, so I've got this up here. And again, I'm using my angular sash laid on its edge to create a fine line. And I got trees back here, but I want to get them, do them out. I want to get these in here first to kind of get that. Can you guys see it all right? Can you?
Mhm.
Okay, so. Monet, I don't know if I've told you guys this before, but when he did his haystack series and his landscape series paintings, he would line up 5 or 6 canvases in a row. And he would go out at the same time of day and he'd work on the first canvas for an hour, move to the second canvas and work, move to the third canvas and work, because he was so concerned with the effects of changing light. And so that really is an issue doing plein air. That and clouds. Clouds can drive you crazy. They literally, they're constantly changing. And you get a great cloud formation and the next thing you know, yay! The next thing you know, the damn thing's gone. You know, this great cloud's gone. So what I want to get now on the tree is I just want to start to get kind of that attitude of the general structure and shape of the tree. A little oranger. And I love these angular sashes, you guys. They're so versatile. You can do so damn many things with it. I used to use, at the Art Institute, we were taught to use red sables, which are quite expensive. You know, back in the day, a brush this size and a red sable cost $30. I don't know what they cost now, but they're too soft. And I use a synthetic bristle, which I told you guys this brand, but they have more flex and they give you a little more control, and you can control the viscosity of your paint better. Okay, so that's blocking. One thing I didn't do is I didn't back up much. I usually back up a lot.